I so badly want to call this painting finished, but it's just missing that little bit extra. Hey everyone, Luke here, and welcome to another time-lapse video. As always, we're going to start with a little bit of an underpainting and sketch, and I'm going to be using some raw umber and titanium white. I do this first sketch layer in acrylic due to how fast it dries. I also have a solvent-free studio, so I don't have to use any harmful thinners in order to get this first layer down. My main goal of this initial sketch is to sort of block out the darks and lights, make sure all my proportions and perspective are in check, and sort of make a roadmap for how this painting is going to be laid out. I'm not trying to be perfect during this initial underpainting stage, but I'm trying to be accurate as possible, keeping in mind the values that are going to be in the final painting, as well as the shapes. One thing I've started doing is introducing a bit of titanium white into the underpainting. This just allows me to reinforce a little bit more of the lighter values to give them a little bit more punch. And now we're going to be getting into the color mixing. In some of my other videos, I've gotten comments about wanting to see the palette that I prep. And this is how I do it. Basically what I do is I sort my painting into different color groups. So for this painting, we're going to have 3. We're going to have greens, we're going to have some reds and ochre colors, as well as the sky, which the sky is sort of some light value blues. And I like to organize them from dark to light. And what this does is it gives me a roadmap or guideline of what I'm looking at when I'm looking at my reference material. So when I see a dark blue in the sky, I know that it's not going to be a darker blue than the blue I've mixed on my palette. The idea is not to mix every single color that's going to be in there. I'm going to miss a couple stages purposely in the values, but it's, again, just to give me a rough idea of what the darkest color is going to be in that color group and the lightest color is going to be in that color group. And once it's all done, it creates this really satisfying palette to look at, where it's darkest to light, nice and organized, and easy for me to process while I'm painting. All right. Okay, now this isn't bulletproof. There is a downfall to prepping like this, and it is that if you don't mix enough paint, you can spend a lot of time reworking and making paint. So that's kind of how I like to get set up for a painting. So we got everything prepped now. Let's just hop into oil painting. So now that my palette's all prepped, my background's all dry, I'm happy where my sketch is, I can finally start to move into the painting process. I'm going to paint this very traditionally, in that I'm going to start from the furthest object, which in this case is going to be the sky. I'm going to start with the darkest value in that area and then work to the lightest. And then from there, I'm going to move to the next closest object, darkest to lightest, and the next closest object after that. And I'll point out a little bit later in the video where this becomes such a benefit towards completing a really nice piece. And as you can see, I really start to narrow in my sketch a little bit. So as I said before, my sketch is very loose. It's again, just to get the general idea as accurate as possible. But now that I'm in the painting stage, I'm really going to make sure that I'm starting to get some crisp lines and everything is where it should be. Now this little farmhouse in this painting is the main focal point. So you're gonna see me spend a lot of time and energy making sure that this is right. The first reason is that it's a house, and so there's going to be some perspective involved in it, and if it's off, the eye is going to catch it right away. The second thing is that it's also very delicate. I don't want it to be too sharp and too crisp because it's going to stick out and be too obvious in the painting, and I want the viewer to sort of journey towards this farmhouse. So I want to try and be a little bit loose with my brushwork, but also achieve a sense of accuracy with it. So you can definitely see I spend a lot of time on this house, reworking and working areas to make sure it's just right. And now that that background is all done, I can start to work into cutting in the next layer in this painting. And as you watch, as I'm painting this next layer forward in the painting, you're going to see I'm going to start cutting in some of those areas in the background. Because the background is still wet, it's going to create these really nice soft transitions. And it's going to give much softer edges and allow me to build a little bit more of atmospheric perspective as I'm working forward. As I come back to this farmhouse here, you're going to see the real benefit of working from back to front. I'm going to start to cut in on this house and really sort of hide it behind these trees by delicately painting some bushes and trees in front of it to sort of tuck it in there. You wouldn't be able to really achieve this if I saved the house last, as there would be lots of hard edges and it would have stuck out quite a bit more, where now I'm able to sort of brush over top of it and sort of tuck it into its own little area and make it even more interesting for the viewer to try and journey towards. This tree was another big area I also wanted to focus on. It was actually the main thing I wanted to do in this piece, and I really wanted to have this very detailed tree, but also very loose and very abstract at the same time. As my painting career continues on, I start to appreciate more and more the effect of abstraction. And instead of trying to copy one for one the reference photo, what I'm really trying to do is abstract it and allow the viewer to use their own personal view of the painting to articulate what they're seeing. Meaning that they're seeing a different tree than I might be seeing, or that their friend might be seeing. So by doing loose, big brush strokes while still trying to be accurate and not putting a ton of hard lines, it gives this abstract look that allows the viewer to create their own tree in this landscape. All right, so the painting at this point is quite literally 50% complete. All that's really remaining is this road and these two fields here. Now, although these are relatively simple areas, there's a lot of detail in there. So let's just jump in and see if we can finish this painting. Now, I don't know if you're able to tell from that last clip, but I was actually quite nervous about this lower part of the painting. There's not a ton of detail in the reference photo that I was using, and it left a lot up for interpretation. And so I was doing my best to be abstract, but also accurate. And this poses difficult as we start to move closer and closer to the viewer. Now we're starting to get into more of the foreground of the painting, and a way to really start to reinforce atmospheric perspective, or the illusion that something is closer to you than something else, is to add a lot of texture. And this was something that I feel that I lost a little bit during this time. like to use these really cheap like hobby brushes. They're just really cheap brushes you can get at like your local art store. And they're these sort of like, I guess, hog bristle brushes. They're not like real expensive ones. They're really, really cheap. And the brush, the brushes on them are just completely wild. And it's really nice for painting like grass or hair or anything like that, where you want to get a lot of detail in one brush stroke. Now this windy road was something that I intentionally wanted to have in this piece. I didn't want to have sort of this like straight path towards the farmhouse in the background. I wanted the viewer to feeling like they're coming down this winding country road and allowing their eyes to sort of have this journey around these fields as they come to this farmhouse. And just as I'm putting the final touches on this piece, I stand back and notice that something is really just not quite right. Okay. I so badly want to call this painting finished, but it's just missing that little bit extra. I'm very happy with the top half. There's nothing I want to go back and fix. I think it's nearly perfect for what I wanted to do. I'm just having some issues with the bottom half. I think this left side here is way too soft, and I need to come in with some hard edges to define some shapes a little bit more. And I think that the left side definitely needs some more texture, but I'm kind of at this dilemma here. I didn't mix enough paint. This isn't bulletproof. If you don't mix enough paint, you could spend a lot of time reworking and making paint. So the first option is I can just live with this. I can just call the painting done. You can probably tell by the length of this video that that's not what I'm going to do. The second option is to just use some of the paint I have, whatever's left, add some texture in there. And the last option is basically to remix some paint and to just re-tackle the whole area. I don't really like one of those options completely, so I'm going to do a mix of the last two. I'm going to basically come in here, solidify some of these shapes a bit more. I'm going to mix a little bit more paint, try and match it as close as possible. And I'm just going to come in and start adding a bit of texture, and hopefully I can call it finished. So let's dive back in because I'm so excited to get this painting finished. So after coming up with a little bit of a game plan to fix this piece and solidify it, I decided to come back and use a little bit more texture and some dark values to sort of solidify some of these shapes. You'll see I'm using a palette knife here, where I basically load the side of the palette knife with paint and sort of scratch in some of these loose pieces of grass and hay that are sort of catching the sunlight. I'm doing my best here to really create as much texture as possible by using this palette knife, by globs of paint on there, dabbing it all over the place, trying to be accurate but random, and again, to sort of give this viewer that atmospheric perspective, that feeling that these pieces of texture are super close to the viewer and make it so that that farmhouse is just that much further into the distance, so that their eyes want to wander down there and see what's going on over there. I came up with this idea that I really liked, where this right side of the field maybe had some wildflowers in there. So instead of doing what I was doing on the left-hand side, which was a bunch of lines, I decided to put some different colors from the sky and glob them on there. I didn't want to take new paint and mix it. I still had some existing paint from the sky and from the house, and just sort of glob them on there to give the illusion of some wildflowers. And with those last final touches, the painting is finally finished. I hope you all enjoyed this video. If you made it this far into the video, please consider subscribing and hitting the little bell notification to get notified as soon as I drop a new video. These time lapses are something that are a little bit new for me, so definitely let me know if this is something that you enjoy, and I will continue to put out content like this. And again, thanks so much for watching, and I hope you all take care.